Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to this. This is the second episode of Go Talk, and once again I have with me the Lightning Go World Champion David Mitchell in terms of duration, not in terms of talent. David, hello.
Hello, James. How are you?
I'm good. Yes, so this week, last week we spoke about how to start playing, and we spoke about a different view on how to understand and learn the game. Um, since then, I guess once you know what to play, what do you do then? Apart from play a lot of games, I imagine. It's a good thing to start with, right?
Yeah, look, it is. I had a question from the Port Macquarie Club. I visited there last weekend, and I promised Keith that I would put a post up, and I put a post up for the guys. Now, these are all beginners, and what I recommended to them was play.
Right.
Preferably play against someone who's experienced and can tell you what they're trying to do. But even if you can't do that, play against the robot. Now, the robot I recommended to them is kosumi.net/en. That's COSUMI, not the K traditional, because that robot enables them to play anytime, anywhere, smallest room on the train going to work, doing whatever, and to try. If they are getting beaten, if they make a mistake, they can start,
Turn the robot
cancel
off.
the game, they can resign, start another one. It's not a problem. But they get to play.
Yeah.
And that's really the most important thing for those guys. And one of the other things that I'll come on to a bit later that is important is that it's not, hey, Thursday's go playing day.
No, Thursday's go
all day on Thursday.
Thursday's go
then
talk
forget
day.
about it the rest of the week.
Thursday is yeah. Thursday they better not be. They better be watching us.
Well, yeah, whichever day. But it's not that.
Right.
It's a more balanced approach to it. But to play regularly, not just a little bit, but to play regularly.
Yeah.
Now, that's okay as advice for beginners. And, I wouldn't be recommending anything else.
Other than just playing, right?
Well, playing, but you've got the rules of Go give you no idea of what to do.
Right.
When you get the rules and you read them, it doesn't tell you anything. You can make a complete and utter idiot of yourself very easily, and the rules don't stop you.
No, never.
What you need to do is to listen to other people and to build effectively your own set of rules, your own ideas, and then recognise as people looking down the mountain rather than people looking up the mountain, but that you'll be kicking those to one side and cast them away because they're wrong, and you'll introduce another more sophisticated set of rules, and that process will continue for the rest of your life, or your rest of your go playing life anyway.
So,
because there's nothing to guide you. There's nothing to say this is absolute.
On that,
even the AI programs, there's nothing absolute in the AI programs.
Yeah. On that note, funnily enough, you mentioned for beginners playing against a stronger player, at least a bit stronger, so they can give them some guidance, is quite a good idea. It reminds me of a story of a wonderful player we have at our club. Lovely guy named Tony, and of no relation to your Tony. But when he first started playing, he played with another complete beginner, and they were the only two players in their town. So the problem with that is that he had a situation where neither of them could correct each other. Neither of them would really get much better because all they had was each other to bounce it off, and it probably hurt his go play for maybe even forever because he was sort of an eternal Q player as he beat his chest and declared to everyone.
Yeah, look, I can understand that. I'm not sure that that's necessarily right, but just just a personal question. When you first started, what did you do? How did you learn? What did you get up to?
That was the thing. The generic advice that I was always given, and it's always pretty much the same. It's study professional games and solve life and death problems. So when I was first starting to play, Go Problems was quite popular. But the problem is that a site like Go Problems is just click till you find the answer. So it doesn't really help with the discipline of actually sitting there, working out what's going on before you actually do anything. The professional games at my 18Q level, I think it was when I first started, taught me maybe one Joseki, and I didn't understand anything after that. And in fairness, I probably didn't understand the Joseki either. So I think the professional games did me more harm than good when I first started, except for rote learning a few moves.
Fair enough. When I started playing Go, the concept of click or mouse, which was something that ate your cheese in the cupboard when you weren't looking, didn't exist.
Right.
English language books, there were maybe 3 or 4, but they were really basic beginners books. There were books in Japanese, which were great, and you could go through them.
Learn Japanese.
Except that I didn't speak any Japanese.
At the time.
Even now. And there were a number of drawbacks that set me back a bit. The first was that I didn't understand that the diagrams in there also included diagrams that weren't good. So I would learn the
bad
diagrams by rote.
Oh, no.
And would sit down and make sure I got them absolutely right. And I'd be playing bad variations on the basis that these were in the book and therefore they must have been good.
Oh, I see.
And they weren't quite as good as they could have been.
No, in fact, they're a bit worse.
So, there were various challenges at that point, and life and death problems they were non-existent. You bought a book, and I've got some books. Maeda published 3 books, which are little booklets with problems in, and the answers were on the next page. And it took a lot of discipline to try and solve the problem before you turned the page.
Li Chang Ho has a set of books like that as well. Both
there's lots of them, but the one thing that I lacked was that discipline of not turning the page.
It's too easy, right?
I can't solve this. I've got to turn the page. What's the answer?
Well, it's actually you actually learn to read them in a very well lit room because the pages are so thin. That you can see the answer on the other side.
Yep. Got all of those.
Yeah.
So when I first started, this was in would have been the end of 1970.
Okay.
Was when I started, beginning of 1971. End of 1970. I was 18Q. Funny number.
Yeah, funnily enough. Yeah.
And I went to the Leeds British Go Congress, and somebody had bought a translated Tetsuji book, which was printed on A4 paper in English, which was absolutely astonishing.
That's
and I stayed up the whole night reading it because I read the first page, and I thought this sort of opened the door. This was, wow, this is what the game's really about.
Right.
And I won all my games. I got promoted to 15Q. And within a year, I was up to 5Q. And at the end of the following year, I was playing at 1 Dan.
That's pretty good.
So there was a lot of things in there. But what I did in between, there was a guy by the name of Sakata who worked with the Nihon Kin and the Issue Press and published a couple of Joseki Fuseki books, the modern Joseki Fuseki. Yeah.
The Razor.
What I did was I sat down and tried to understand what those books were about.
Right.
Which brings me, from my point of view, that sort of takes me to
You've probably got to tell me that if you're about to. You got to tell me if you're about to start your presentation, David.
I don't want to start there. I want to start with something else.
Right.
Because
am I displaying that yet or not yet? That's what I'm.
Yeah, you display that.
All right.
What I wanted to do. Lots of people have asked me over the years, how do I get better? What do I do? What do I have to do to be better? How can I improve?
Yeah.
And I've looked at this in numbers of different ways. And my trusty companion, who is extremely sagacious and does not really contradict me, also known as Elfie, my dog.
I was about to say,
we
walked
along
really nice
the seafront and along the beach, and I discuss things with her.
Oh, I see.
And she looks at me and she says, "Are you really sure?" She doesn't say the words, otherwise I'd be a very, very rich person. But she questions it, and that became a bit of an issue for me in actually understanding what's going on. And the thoughts and discussions were that really Go is not a game. It's a mind sport. I think we mentioned that before.
You mentioned that at the end of last week. That's right.
Yeah. And as a sport, if you play a sport, if you play basketball, if you play netball, if you swim, if you do anything, there are coaches. And there's coaches material for everybody. Phil Jackson was a great basketball coach for the US.
Yeah.
He did a lot of good things and published all of his stuff. He innovated the whole thing. The idea of cross-training, the idea of doing things other than the specific physical activity you were engaging in to gain benefit was open all the doors.
Yeah.
If you look at mind sports and you say, okay, so I'm going to be a coach or I want to learn mind sports, where do I go? And the short answer is nowhere. There isn't anywhere to go. There's nothing. So if you want to be better, if you want to do something, you need to have a focus. Now, I've lectured at UTS, the University of Technology, Sydney, in the IT department. It's really wonderful. Great bunch of people. I could kill probably 60% of the students and be doing the world of service because they have this.
I think I'd be careful with the word "kill" on.
All right. Well, I could.
Give them a toaster bath.
Okay. Well, they come to the subject, and their answers to everything is, "I just want 51%." So long as I can get 51%, if I can pass, P's make degrees. I can pass the subject, it's okay.
Wow.
And it's not. It is not okay because 51% means that 49% of you is stupid. It doesn't understand. You need to understand a lot more than that. And that's where mind sports, that's where the proper learning component comes in. You need to learn. So I try to break this down, and to be better, I came up with one word. And the key word to me was understanding.
Yep, cool.
At the end of the day, if you understand, that's what's important. Memory, learning things by rote is important, but it is not understanding. Being able to work out sequences and play positions to come up with answers is important, but it is not the end goal. Being able to imagine opportunities, being able to use your brain to create chances is important, but it's not everything. Those three combined come into understanding. So real understanding comes when you have the logic. You can work out what's going on. You can see what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
You have the memory, because if you forget what you've done or you can't remember what you read in a book, then, this is not very helpful.
No. Well, it is, but for a short period of time.
Yeah, and if you only got those facts and you have no imagination, you're not going to go anywhere. It's not going to help. So you need all three of those to go into a coaching and learning exercise. And out of that will come understanding.
Yeah.
And teaching, coaching side of it is as important as the learning side of it. Everybody, whether they're a beginner or an advanced player, needs to teach and learn. You've got to take the things on board. So memory is vital, logic, absolutely, and your imagination is what glues it all together.
Okay. Your imagination, I guess, is also how you apply it to situations other than the context which you learned it in, I suppose.
Imagination is trying to work out what's going to happen. I remember playing a game, and Michael Hyde, I'm sure, will forgive me, but
He
a long
won't.
time, a year, 18 months ago, I played a game against him, and he attacked one of my groups, and he chased me in such a way that I ran into his territory and killed some of his stones. And in the review afterwards, my recollection is he said, I said, this wasn't a really good thing to do. Why did you do it? And he said, well, that's what I wanted to do. Now,
so it all went according to plan. He just didn't realize how bad the plan was.
Sorry?
It all went according to plan. He just didn't realize how bad the plan was.
Yes, and that's the thing. And your imagination is being able to put yourself in the position where you can see what's going to happen. Now, Michael's improved heaps. He understands an awful lot more than then. But the key thing is with the imagination is to look at it and say, hey, this is where I should be. This is what I should have.
Gotcha.
Or looking at it and say, well, if I carry on down this path, I'm going to lose. Do I want to lose? If I do, I might as well resign now. If I don't, then I've got to change what I'm doing.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's got the logic and the memory come in after that, but that's where what I've called imagination comes in.
Gotcha.
Okay. So they become the inputs to learning.
Yeah.
When it comes to learning, there's certain things that you need to do. Whether you're teaching or you're learning, you need patience. You need to take your time. You need to stay calm. Some people, me, for example, play quickly.
Yes, you do.
I do. Do not mimic people that play quickly. Do not try and solve the problem quickly. If you can't solve the problem, don't look at the answer. This is a learning opportunity. Patience, the virtue that they all talk about, is very important, because if you can work out how to solve that problem without looking at the answer, you've actually got something you can put up on the board. You can put a big tick up on your board. You can put a star up on your star chart, whatever you want to do. But be patient, both learning and teaching. If you're teaching someone, if they don't understand what you're talking about, take a different tack.
It means you're a bad. No, I won't say it means you're a bad teacher, but it might do.
It may be. It might be. But try and get to a point where the person understands what's going on. So be patient with people you're teaching. Don't throw your arms up in the air and say you're too stupid, you'll never learn, and storm off.
No, they won't.
The only idiot in that situation is you. So the patience is important.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Planning. Okay. Planning when you're learning, planning when you're teaching. I'll come on to that in a minute because I'm going to talk about that in the how-to. But you need to be agile and flexible when you're playing. You need to have a plan, but you also need to be able to duck, bob, and weave when you're in that situation. The next one I've got on the thing is resilience. Respond, change, improvise, overcome. I've borrowed some of those words from a Clint Eastwood movie called Heartbreak Ridge.
I've seen that one.
And really what he's saying to the guys there is, don't come to me and complain because something's gone wrong. Fix it. And that's the situation. If you are looking to learn, if you're in a learning situation, the resilience is to be honest with yourself and to say, to be honest, I really don't understand this.
Yeah.
And to put that at the top of your list of the things that you're going to do.
On the
If you understand something, it's easy. You understand something, it's great, and you go, oh yeah. And the temptation is to carry on doing that because it makes you feel good.
right. You mentioned the problem where if you don't solve a problem, don't look at the answer.
Mm,
Um, so that sort of reminds me of those old school textbooks that we used to have back before everything was digital, where the answers to the math problems are at the back as well, saves the teacher correcting it, or actually it helps the teacher with correcting it some of the time. Um,
mm,
but the thing is, the teacher always asks you to show working as well.
mm.
And they weren't, and I remember on a lot of tests, you weren't graded just on having the right answer. You got marks for the working as well, even if the answer was wrong. And I suppose it's the same with the Go problem. If you
Mm,
look at the answer, all you get is the answer. You don't get the working.
mm.
You don't get
Yeah,
the reason why that's the only answer. So you don't necessarily get the understanding.
yeah, and it is the process of going through the if he plays this, I'll do this. Right? You do that, I do this, I do that. So here. Oh, never mind. Here. Oh, yeah. Oh, that works. And working your way through that process, having an accurate picture in your mind is what's important.
Yeah.
If you can play a position out on the board and solve the problem, that's brilliant for solving a problem. But unfortunately, when you're playing a game against someone, you can't say, "Oh, look, I made a mistake. Please take those last 8 moves back, and we'll start again."
Yeah, so I'll get it next time, don't worry.
You've got to do it in your brain. Bottom line, your brain is what has to solve these things. The brain
Yeah.
has to be the thing that is dominant.
The squidgy bit between your ears.
Yeah. Next thing I put on here is control.
Yep.
And I'll talk about control in relationship to the game rather than anything else. And control is the end game of what you're trying to do. You may want to win, you may want to have more power, but control is what's important. I don't want to go into that now. It's not really a thing here.
Okay.
Opportunity. If you see or if you think your opponent's made a mistake, then this is great and you've got to grasp it with both hands. It's what you really want, the opportunity. So you need to be solid with what you're doing. You need to play, you need to learn. But if you see an opportunity, you see something come along that you think is of value, then you need to grab it with both hands. And that comes along with judgment, because if you don't judge the situation properly, if you don't judge the whole position properly, then you will make other decisions that are wrong. And the final one I've got on here is balance. And with balance, again, citing Michael Hyde, who put a post up earlier today on
He'd be
Facebook.
so proud. He's got so many mentions.
So many mentions. Well done, Michael. You've got to like this.
Yeah. Michael, like and subscribe.
I can't remember who it was, but one of the lessons that's up there is big points before urgent points, and he posted that up there, and that is what's important.
Isn't it urgent points before big points?
Urgent points before big points.
He still hasn't learned.
Balance. Greed is bad. Respect your opponent. Respect your pupil. Respect your teacher.
Yep.
Because they are both there. All of those things are important. When you're playing a game, don't expect to win by 360 points. It's not going to happen. You're going to win if you want to win, but it's never going to be a complete wipeout. And so don't expect that. When you're teaching a person, there's no such thing as a dumb question. This has been said a lot of times. So taking this offline from Go and taking into IT business, which I was in before, I was in charge of a system at News Limited. We had revenue going through the system of $1.4 billion a year for all of the advertising that went through the system.
Yep.
We had advertising managers and advertising directors across the country, across the whole of Australia, responsible for this.
Okay.
One of them came into my office and he said, I want a report, David. I said, not a problem. What do you want?
What do you
He
want to
said,
know?
I want to know the answer. What sort of answer are you looking for? I just want to get the answer. And we had a long discussion about it. And I said, well, if you want to know what your sales reps are doing, I can tell you, I can give you a report on how your sales reps are doing. If you want to see how the clients are doing, what they're spending, how comparison year on year, I can give you all of that. I can put all these things in different reports. What is it you want? Yeah, I want all of those.
Right.
Well, we've already got these things here. Which ones are you missing? No, that's not what I want. Now, I labelled him for a long time a dummy.
Well, yeah, there's no such things as stupid questions, just stupid people.
Well, yeah, and I thought that was the
thing.
situation, and I labelled him stupid. And then I again, it wasn't Elfie, it was a different partner at the time. We had a discussion about it, and it was, this guy is not stupid. This guy is in charge of people that is bringing in $1.4 billion a year. This guy cannot be stupid, because if he was stupid, he couldn't be having that job. So he's obviously in a situation where he can't supply the question. He doesn't understand what to ask. And if I don't know what he's asking, I can't answer the question. So I need to dig deeper.
Right.
And we had long discussions, and there were 1 or 2 bottles of wine and a few lunches and whatever that went into place, so that we could actually break through and understand what he was after.
Gotcha.
What I didn't do to start off with was respect him. If I'd have respected him to start off with, then we would have probably not had so many bottles of red wine and decent steaks, but we would have got a better answer, got an answer more quickly to what he was after.
Yeah, but the steaks and the wine.
Sorry?
Yeah, but the steaks and the wine, I mean, it seems like they disrespected you quite well, actually.
Well, yes, and what we actually ended up doing was inventing what is now called big data, because we landed up analysing data and enabling him to take certain dimensions in a multi-dimensional data set and to come up with answers, come up with questions to see things which he'd never even dreamed of. And it was good. But it comes back to respecting your opponent. Just because you're teaching someone that doesn't know what they're doing doesn't mean that their questions are dumb.
Or it doesn't mean they're an idiot, yeah.
It doesn't mean they're an idiot. It doesn't mean their questions are dumb. Treat them with respect. Don't put them down. Okay? So that's the key thing from there. So all of these bits put together, they all sound wonderful, and I've talked a lot about it, and it all sounds truly great. But looking at it, what do I do?
Yeah, that's a good question. What do I
study? How do I study? How do I go forwards? I don't know about you. What I did when I got the Cicada books was that I was working 5 days a week. I was playing Go 7 evenings a week.
Wow.
And that meant me driving all over the place, because I played at every club I could possibly get to in and around London. But the one gap in my timetable that enabled me to study was Sunday mornings. And about 6 o'clock in the morning, my alarm went off, and I sat down on the cold, hard chair in my kitchen with my Go set and my book, and I sat there and I studied.
Pray tell, what did you study?
I set that as my study program. I also, on the bus going to Barclays Bank in North Enfield, I solved life and death problems, and I learnt the Joseki.
Cool. So
what I think other people should do, what I think people should do now to study, is to try and work out a program that's suitable for them.
Okay.
Now, you can do that on your own. You could do it with a coach. Somebody to help you is a good idea. But work out a program and stick to it for a month. Don't make any changes. Do it religiously. Don't pray to get better. Just do it. When you study regularly, you got to do little and often. I mean, I was solving life and death problems on the bus, into work, at lunchtime, and in the evening. When you're studying, doesn't matter what you're studying, little and often is the key. Manage your study time. All right. Have you heard of Pomodoro?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's Italian for tomato.
I was about to say, I thought I thought I'd seen it in the kitchen somewhere.
And it's got nothing to do with tomatoes.
Oh, good.
There's a long and complicated story, which I shan't go into, but basically somebody who wanted to stay at university needed to study, and they couldn't study because they weren't disciplined. And their mother had a timer, which was to time how long it took the tomatoes to cook.
Oh, I see.
And what they did was they set up this regime. And what they did was they studied for a period of time and they took 5 minutes break. And then they studied for the same period of time and took 5 minutes break, and did that 3 or 4 times. And then at the end of that period, they would have a half-hour break and then maybe go back in again. You set the regime yourself, but the principle is that you study for, let's say, 30 minutes. And then you have a 5-minute break. Go for a pee, get yourself a scotch, whatever you want to do. And then you come back and then you study again. And you keep studying for that period of time. When the bell goes, that's great. You stop studying and you have your break again. And that regime helps people manage their study time, helps them get the most out of the time that's available. If you sat there for an hour and a half and studied constantly, your brain would fry and you wouldn't make the hour and a half, and you give up and you go off, and you wouldn't do so much. By breaking and having 5-minute breaks in between, you can do an hour and a half, no problem. Yeah. You can probably do 2.5 hours, no problem.
You can do more than that even.
You can, but this is up to the person. It's up to the person and the circumstances and all of those things of what they can do and how they can do it. So this method, there's applications. You can put them on your wonderful iPhone or your
which is the
Android
very thing that's going to be making the beeping more than every half hour to distract you during your study in this day and age.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's lots of things you can do. I mean, you can buy one of those wind-up clock things that you use for baking.
Oh, those.
To do the timing for you. But time and manage the time.
Yeah.
The last thing I've got on here is don't set a single measure of success. I've seen a lot of things that fail because of measures. I'm going to be another stone stronger at the end of the month, and I'm going to study to achieve that. Yeah. And you get to the end of the month and you've studied and you've learned stuff.
And you're not a stone stronger.
But you're not winning the games that you think you should do, and therefore your strength stays where it is. Right. Your rating stays where it is. It's not a measure. It's not a single valid measure. I want to solve all the life and death problems within 30 seconds of looking at them. Is not a valid measure. What you're trying to do is improve your understanding. You don't want 51%. You want to understand. And it's that understanding, that in your guts understanding, that is what you're trying to achieve. Right. So setting measures, I will be this by then, is, in my view, counterproductive, because when you get to the period of time that you've allocated to it and then try and measure it, right, it doesn't always happen.
It doesn't actually show the metric you choose in that regard doesn't actually demonstrate understanding.
That's right. And I look at my career in Go and how I improve, and what would happen would be I'd be going along on a plateau, and I think, I need to study, I need to get better. And the first thing that would happen would be about 3-4 weeks after I started studying, was I'd lose all my games. I start losing and what's going on? And I get worse. And then I would start winning, and suddenly I would take this big leap upwards. So I'd be going along on the plateau, I'd drop off the edge and then take a rebound upwards, like jumping on a trampoline below. And then I'd get up to the next level. And I saw that consistently throughout the period of time up until I got to about 2 or 3, Dan. That was exactly what happened. Every time I would try and study something, I would try and get better, I'd try and do this, that, and the other, and I'd have all my study plans and all the rest of it. But I'd still drop off the edge, and then, I would be in free fall. And psychologically, you lose it. You don't, what's going on? I'm putting all this effort in, and nothing happens. So when you're learning, you can't have a single measure of success. You can't say, oh, I've studied all these life and death problems, I'm going to be a stone stronger, or I've studied all these professional games and I will be so much better. It doesn't work.
Right.
So what you need to do is, in my view, not have a measure. I think measures are counterproductive. So I don't think that is an important thing. But a lot of people will put a measure. A lot of people will set this thing up and say, this is where I need to be. And my answer is, if you are happy with what you're doing and you are enjoying your game and you're improving your game, then that's okay. Yeah. Whether you win the game or not is irrelevant. I've lost games I should have won. I've won games very many times I should have lost.
Yep, all been there.
So it is not a valid measure. So that's why I put that last one in there.
Yeah. So Waylon in the comments has just said that he's found the same thing. Usually he has a drop in rank before going up a bit, and I suspect that's the case when you're trying to integrate your new understanding into your existing knowledge.
Absolutely. So that's the how. In my discussions with Elfie the dog, I came up with, and Elfie was in total agreement, with a mind map that I put together. You can't read this. I don't expect you to read it. There's a lot of stuff in there. And what I want to do is go through the 7 key components. And I've put mind sport coaching in the middle. It could be mind sport learning. It could be mind sport coaching. It is the same thing. You've got to understand what each of them are. Now, what have we got? So we got about 10 or 15 minutes. What I'd like to do, James, with this is perhaps carry some of these over to next time.
Yeah, sure.
And
what we're actually going to
talk a lot.
It's interesting. What we're going to do, guys, is when we discussed this particular topic, learning, improving, and how to improve, we discovered it was such a big, broad topic that it was probably going to take more than one episode to get through it all. But that also gives us an opportunity. So David's going to talk about his what to study map for a bit. But in the meantime as well, you guys can start to think about questions that you'd like us to answer next week on the show. And you can send them in to my... you can either send them into Discord. My Discord is Lumbertruck. I don't know quite how that works, not being a Discord expert, but I'm sure you can PM me on Discord. Otherwise, you can PM me on Twitch as well, not a problem. If you have any questions that you'd like us to answer next week, or in the meantime, you can even think of them and put them in the chat now as well. And if we get to them today, great. If not, we'll address them in next week's show. So I'll let you continue with your mind map, David.
Okay. So we'll get rid of that. The key components in the mind map, the 7 items around that central item, are critical thinking, mindset, creativity, memory, study, problem solving, and practice.
Cool.
Right? They all sound truly wonderful. Now, what I wanted to do with each of these, and what I think I did, was to come up with ways and means of doing things that will help in each of these areas, because there's no point in just saying, "Oh, you need to improve your critical thinking," and somebody says, "Yes,
Thanks,
so
coach.
what do I do? How do I do it? Or what are you talking about? Or would you like another one of those funny cigarettes that smell funny?" Which I don't have.
You're talking about vaping.
Well, you could do that, but I prefer the Scotch. But anyway.
Oh, that's not a cigarette. All right.
No. It puts the cigarettes out.
Oh, good.
But each one of these things, you need to be able to understand, and you need to be able to do something about. And that was one of the critical things when I was discussing it with Elfie. What do you actually do in each of these circumstances?
Elfie the dog, for anyone who wasn't here.
Elfie the dog.
At the start of the
weren't
session.
paying attention before.
Or who weren't here.
So, critical thinking. All right? Critical thinking means that you don't trust anybody and you don't trust anything. And there are no sacred cows. A lot of times people will, when they first start learning, they will play a stone that's an Atari on the second line, down on the first line, and it's dead. They've wasted the stone. And so it becomes a sacred cow. I never play an extension from a stone that's an Atari on the second line towards the edge, because the next move is going to be Atari. And that goes out of their brains.
Until they learn the tombstone tessage.
Until they learn that it's not wrong sometimes. Sometimes it's right. And what you need to do is to challenge everything. And the worst person to trust, the last person to trust, is yourself.
Oh, no.
If you trust yourself, then you're in deep trouble, because it means you will never get better than where you are now. You need to challenge yourself. You need to look at it and say, well, what if I did this? How about I play something different? What if? And to put those things in there, ask the question, whether the question is asking of a coach or a mentor, hey, what do you think about this? Or whether it's you playing out situations and trying out things. I never had a mentor when I was learning. When I sat down on that hard chair on a Sunday morning, nobody helped me. It was just me. And so I would play ridiculous moves to try and figure out why they didn't work. And that's part of learning. So don't trust anything, don't trust anybody, and don't ignore any positions. So critical thinking is part of that. The second thing is to keep records. Keep kipu, the diagrams of your games. If you can record them while you're playing, great. If you can record the first 20, 30, 50 moves of the game afterwards, do so. Write it down, sit there with your opponent and record the game so that you can go over it later, so that you've got a record of what you've done. And keep a diary of what you're doing, so you've got an understanding, whether it's I had a lesson here, I did this or whatever. It just adds to the body of knowledge that you're creating about yourself. Keeping records is great. Archivists are great people. They know very little other than the records they've kept. Is part of the story. The second part of this is reflection. So when you go through your games, write notes.
Yeah.
Write things down that you think are important. And in the process of writing, I wrote code, all right? I would have bugs in my code. Everybody has bugs in their code. I would have to talk to someone sometimes. I had this imaginary person I would talk to. People looked at me like I was silly because
and that's why you got a dog.
Yeah, that's why I got a dog, because you can talk to the dog. The imaginary person, people start sort of calling for the guys in the white coats and the straight jacket. But what I did was I talked about what I thought. And in the process of speaking, your thoughts become clarified. In the process of writing, your thoughts become clarified. You put it down on paper and your brain engages another gear. So writing the notes with your game and reviewing the notes that you made with the games and go back over them, because that will help you improve what you did. That will help you understand. When I was at 1Q trying to get to 1Dan, I went back and read beginner books. I went back and read the books that I read when I was first learning to play, that had the rules, had all the explanations in it. It was out of frustration because I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. And I don't know whether that was the trigger for it or something else, but I managed to get through and play at 1Dan and various other Dan levels above. But go back and review. The same with a diary. If you're doing things, if you're playing games, if you're writing notes down about lessons and all that sort of stuff, review what's going on. It will show you where you are in terms of improvement. Look at when you improved. Look at when you didn't improve, what you did at the time. It will help you with that. And when you're playing, always, whether it's with somebody weaker, on a par or stronger than you, go through the game. Game reviews, I've seen people go through game reviews. There's different people have different attitudes to game reviews.
I lost the game, but I'm sure as hell going to win the review.
Yep. That's one. And when you win a game, if you win a game against somebody stronger than you, you don't learn anything from it. You do not learn from the games that you won. They're the games you like to review because you know you won. They're not the ones that will really help.
Yeah.
The ones that will help are the ones where it went wrong. Now, yes, you can learn and improve the things on the games that you won. Yeah, sure. But the key ones, the ones that you will learn the most from, the ones that will help you improve the most, are the ones where you went down in a ball of fire. You just went smack it to the ground. Review them. Try and figure out where you went wrong. And again, talk to other people. Go back and look at situations. James and I talked about the use of artificial intelligence applications like
we
Leo.
did, yeah.
So we'll go into that at another point, and probably next time because we're coming up towards 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
But using tools to understand what your options were. Looking at the Joseki, there's lots of things up there now which I never had a chance of. I mean, Joseki to me were, magic. They were, whoa, it's a Joseki. This is a magic spell. It will open the door. It never did. But now you can actually see them and you can go onto various websites and search all the things. You can buy software like SmartGo, which is a great app, because you can start the position and then you can say, show me all the games
from this position.
This situation's occurred. And magic, they're all there at your fingertips.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it?
It is. And they're wonderful tools. But they are tools. The bottom line is, when you sit down in front of your opponent and play a game, your brain, your memory, your capabilities is all you got. You till somebody gets an implant into your brain and everybody's just as smart as everybody else from that point of view, that's all you got. And you need to understand what's going on. So they're good tools to help you learn. They're good tools to help you improve, but that's it. So the critical thinking side, I believe, is very, very important and very critical to anybody at any level, whether you're a beginner playing on a 9-stone game, whether you're a 5-dan playing a 7-dan or professional, going back over the games, keeping records, keeping your diaries, checking not trusting, not taking anything for granted, looking for alternatives. And if you've still got sacred cows, they deserve to be slaughtered. get, get rid of them. Have a nice steak and a beer. A few red wines, maybe.
Well, you sit wondering what the idiot in front of you was trying to ask you the answer for.
That's right. So that they're important things. I think from my point of view, that's where I'd like to leave this one.
Sure.
You're happy with that, James?
Yeah, we've got a nice amount to cover for next show, so it's nice that we don't have to have a brainstorming meeting this week.
Fair enough. I mean, are there questions coming up about on?
Yeah, let's see if there's any. Let's see if there's any questions what we've covered today. If there are, we'll get to that before we go, and otherwise, we'll be accepting questions for next week's show. If there's anything in particular you'd like us to cover in regards to improving or improvement, so we'll give them a minute while their fingers dance across those keys, and otherwise we'll leave it at that for today.
And the turtle moves.
Oh God.
I wasn't watching the turtle all the time.
Yeah, that was the problem. Again, for anyone who's missed that, David realised the last time he wasn't looking at the camera the whole time, so he put a little turtle above it, so he had something to stare at.
Oh, so I'm teaching the turtle.
Teaching the turtle. The turtle is now about 5Q. It's doing pretty well. It's never lost a game, the turtle.
The turtle has not lost a game. He's never played a stone, but it's never lost a game.
No. Never taken a handicap either.
Which is true.
All right. Here we go. Does the strategy change as you get higher in rank?
Okay, so if you're talking about learning, then what I've told the guys in
Port Macquarie.
Port Macquarie is that what they really need to do is play lots of games.
When they're beginners.
Their focus should be on lots of games. Don't worry about anything else at the moment. Play lots of games. Now, the problem with playing lots of games is that you play against an opponent and your opponent gets bored because you're taking a long time, you're being silly, you're playing dumb moves, you did that before, and you get embarrassed by doing it. So the solution to that is to play on that robot I was talking about, kasumi.net/en.
Spelled with a C. Correct that.
James will put it in the notes, undoubtedly.
Yeah, I'll fix that. Because that's for to clarify, that's for beginners, right? You're talking about.
So, but other people can play on there as well. You can play on robots anywhere.
No, I mean, but the just playing was a recommendation you made
just
specifically for beginners.
Because I liken it to chopsticks. My brother, my first wife was Japanese. I learned to use chopsticks very early in life. And my brother came round for dinner one night and we cooked this very nice Japanese food and gave him a pair of chopsticks, and he starved for half the meal, and then he decided that was just not on, and he just stuck his hands in and went for it. Go is a bit like chopsticks. You're going to starve until you get the hang of it. And that's what you're trying to do with the 9x9 games. You're trying to get the hang of it. You're in the paddling pool, to use another analogy. You're trying to get used to the water because, as I said at the beginning, there's nothing in the rules to stop you making an idiot of yourself. You can learn from books, and you can watch, and you can do all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to getting in there, you just got to do it. So for the beginners, the primary focus would be on playing games. When you get a little bit further up the chain, then you can include solving problems. So Tesuji problems, shape problems, life and death problems. There's an old English saying which actually supports learning life and death. We live and learn.
That's true. Very good. Waylon's gone on to ask. He says, I imagine in mid to high dans you need to know a lot more Joseki, whereas I don't focus on that too much as a single digit cue.
Okay. Joseki are important, I think, as a means of learning to fight. They teach you a lot of shapes. They teach you a lot of good tactics. When it comes to Dan players, high Dan players, I would struggle to remember long, complicated Joseki.
Yeah.
And I'm 4 or 5 Dan in Australia. I think I hold my own most of the time, so it's pretty reasonable. But I think they've taught me shapes and they've taught me things, and I can probably muddle my way through the Joseki. I don't know them by rote. I won't be, oh yes, bang, 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 let's play this Joseki. I would need to think about it and work it out, but yeah, I can do that.
There's an old proverb: learn Joseki, then forget.
Okay, sounds like a good idea to me.
Yeah, well, what that suggests is exactly what you touched on then, which is if you just rote learn the sequence, you don't understand it. If you then forget it, you still might, actually still be able to. Even if you forgot the Joseki, you still might be able to recreate it, even if you don't remember it by rote, because you remember the lessons that came with it.
But coming on to the subject which we've left out and we're going to talk about next week, which is AI. If you go through Redmond's reviews of AlphaGo versus AlphaGo,
it's almost
one
no
of the
Joseki,
comments he makes in there is that AlphaGo doesn't play long, complicated Joseki.
That's true, and a lot of the Joseki it does play, we didn't really play prior either. There's
some of them were a throwback to the early 1900s. You know, playing the knight's move away from the komoku, the 3/4 point in a corner when it's approached, was something that was done, 50, 60, 70 years ago, and then was sort of chucked out because, hey, look at this squeeze play, doesn't that look sexy? And now you've got AlphaGo coming back and saying, yeah, it may look sexy, but
I don't care.
And so the process changes, the ideas change. But Joseki have a very important part in the learning process because they teach you tactics. They teach you that stylized fighting, if you like, which can be applied in multiple positions. So
there's another comment from Cake Surface in chat. Joseki are examples of balanced outcomes. They can help your value system.
Yes. And I like the word balanced in there. A lot of people use the word equal.
Balanced is a nice way of saying it, isn't it?
Yeah. If you come in and your opponent's already got 2 moves and you play and then they play, it's 3-1. Yeah. Having an equal outcome with a 3-1 ratio against you is not Joseki.
No.
If you've got an even situation, then you can expect an even outcome.
Yeah.
But if you've got an unbalanced input, then you're going to expect an unbalanced outcome. But yeah, a lot of people make that mistake. So yeah, nicely worded, like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very good point. It's very easily forgotten. All right, I think maybe we'll leave it at that for tonight.
Okay.
Today, wherever you are in the world. Tonight here. All right, thank you very much everyone for joining us on the 2nd episode of Go Talk. We hope you'll come and join us again next week, same time. And again, if you have any questions, please direct message them to my Twitch account. You too, have a great day. And please direct message them to my Twitch account, preferably before the next episode, so we've got a chance to have a look at them. And we look forward to continuing this topic next week. Thank you very much, everyone, and catch you again. Bye-bye.